A week after they were announced, here's why many people are still thinking about custom GPTs the wrong way. Welcome back to the AI Breakdown. Well, a week ago, at OpenAI's Dev Day, one of, if not the biggest announcement was around what they were calling GPTs or custom GPTs. GPTs, they said, were customized versions of ChatGPT that could combine instructions, extra knowledge, and take actions on behalf of the person interacting with it. They wrote, GPTs are a new way for anyone to create a tailored version of ChatGPT to be more helpful in their daily life, at specific tasks, at work, or at home, and then share that creation with others. GPTs can help you learn the rules to any board game, help teach your kids math, or design stickers. Now, a couple more things to note. One is that GPTs required no code. There was a builder that ChatGPT released at the same time. And two, there was the promise of a GPT store rolling out later this month in November. They wrote, starting today, you can create GPTs and share them publicly. Later this month, we're launching the GPT store featuring creations by verified builders. Once in the store, GPTs become searchable and may climb the leaderboards. We will also spotlight the most useful and delightful GPTs we come across in categories like productivity, education, and just for fun. In the coming months, you'll also be able to earn money based on how many people are using your GPT. So all of this was initially greeted with tons of excitement. But then, of course, the AI hypefluencers on Twitter/X started doing their thing, and every other post that anyone who touches AI saw was some version of here's 10 mind-blowing examples of GPTs, which necessarily creates its own sort of fatigue. Staff engineer writes, I'm already sick of seeing the word GPTs. When will it end? And on the one hand, I totally understand this point of view. It's why I've sort of railed against that type of content in the past. But at the same time, I also started to see many people posting critiques like this one from Daniel Lossy. I'm gonna say it, custom GPTs are lame. It's just a fancy system prompt, lol. AI entrepreneur Bindu Reddy said the same thing. Most GPTs are glorified instruction prompts. While these are fun to play with, I suspect the novelty will soon wear off. Most users will go back to using core ChatGPT features versus messing around with these GPTs. Data Chaz posted the Scooby-Doo reveal meme, where so-called mind-blowing custom GPT is actually revealed to be a fancy one-liner GPT-4 prompt. Now, it is my contention that dismissing these as fancy system prompts completely misses the point of what GPTs are trying to do and where their real value lies. TLDR, they are just a fancy system prompt, but that's exactly the point. So let's talk about what GPTs are not. One, they are not agents. OpenAI made it very clear that this was the case. OpenAI does view them as their very first step towards the world of agents in which AIs have more context about their user and can actually go accomplish tasks, but they are intentionally and explicitly just a very small step in that direction. At OpenAI Dev Day, Sam Altman used the introduction of custom GPTs to reinforce the company's belief that when it comes to a technology that has as many upsides but also downsides as autonomous AI agents, OpenAI believes that the only way to approach it is to actually see how things work in the real world rather than just trying to speculate on them in the lab. The reason it matters that GPTs are not agents is that the label of agent comes with it the baggage of inflated expectations. People expect more from these GPTs than they're actually useful for. And because they don't achieve that idea that people had in their minds, they are dismissed as not very useful, even though they were never intended to be that thing that people were imagining them to be. I think this is much the same with the idea of them as apps. Now, the comparison to apps comes not from OpenAI in any way, but simply because when we think of a store for stuff that users create that a platform cuts people in on, what we think of is the App Store. And since these GPTs are going to be in some cases useful for similar types of things as are apps currently, it's a fairly natural jump to make. Apps, however, of course, are a totally different phenomenon. They are coded and built from the ground up with a specific purpose. They are not meant to be an access point to an AI model, at least not in most cases. And more than anything, they're just more sophisticated and complex than what custom GPTs are trying to be. So again, the reason that it matters to identify what they're not is that I think part of the latent problem with these critiques is that they start from a standpoint of inflated expectations that it doesn't make any sense to actually apply to custom GPTs. But if that's what GPTs are not, they are not apps and they are not agents, then what are they? Well, one, as we said, in OpenAI's view, they are a first step towards agents. Logan, who does developer relations at OpenAI, actually responded to Daniel in that post that I just read and said, it's our first step towards agents. GPTs will get much better over time. Many people have been asking for the ability to customize ChatGPT with files, tools, and instructions. Excited we delivered that, but this is only the first step. So much more to come. So one part of what GPTs are is a first step towards agents. But that's not the thing that I actually think is important right now in terms of how users consider it. I said a moment ago that I think that the critique that GPTs are just glorified prompts is wrong because they are glorified prompts, but that's exactly the point. GPTs are workflows. As often happens, Professor Ethan Mollick from Wharton sums it up really crisply and acutely. He writes, I think GPTs may have actually unlocked the potential of structured prompts for many people. I see tons of people sharing GPTs where before, almost no one shared links to prompts. It's not really a capability change, but a user experience change. What he means is that the most useful GPTs right now are the ones that have come to embody the specific prompts that power users have figured out how to unlock value from, just created in a shareable way. Instead of a Twitter thread or a blog post or a video or some downloadable PDF in exchange for your email that tells you all about prompt engineering and how to copy someone's prompting, instead you can now just hand them one of these custom GPTs. Have you perfectly figured out a way to get great writing critique for technical writing? Well, again, instead of teaching someone how to prompt ChatGPT in the same way that you did to get those results, you can just give them your custom GPT that has all of that structure built into it. GPTs are just saved, shareable, structured prompts. But the fact that they are saved and shareable is what makes them powerful, because that gets us to the next thing that GPTs are, which is use case simplifiers. For the vast majority of people, when they look at the blinking button of the main page of ChatGPT that asks, "How can I help you today?" their answer is, well, I'm not sure. That's why GPT has starter prompts. Mine currently read, design a database schema, tell me a fun fact about the Roman Empire, recommend a dish to impress a date, explain options trading. Maybe, randomly, one of those things will be useful. Or maybe I came to ChatGPT because I had an idea of exactly what I wanted. But I think that the vast majority of people instead come because they've heard this technology is incredibly powerful and they want to see if it's powerful for them. There is nothing more intimidating in many ways than a blank page. And the vast majority of people who learn about artificial intelligence and generative AI tools learn by 1, seeing what other people are doing, and then 2, trying that out themselves and taking it in slightly different directions that are more relevant for them personally. When I say that GPTs are use case simplifiers, what I mean is that instead of having to browse around X to get an idea of what other people are using ChatGPT for, you can just look at the names of these GPTs, all of which have some specific focus, and hone in directly on what's most useful for you. They're use case simplifiers, again, like Ethan said, not because they've added some fundamental new capacity, but because they've created a new user experience that makes it much easier to see what ChatGPT can actually be useful for. And that gets us to one more thing that GPTs are. A way to transfer knowledge from the most to the least sophisticated ChatGPT users. In the world that we live in, when it comes to tools of any type, a very, very tiny fraction of the population that uses those tools are going to be the innovators that actually figure out how to use them. The vast majority of people instead will just copy what they see and really only learn a few workflows that ultimately capture a big chunk of what they need. On the other hand, there are a small handful of users who sit at the top of that power distribution and come up with the vast majority of use cases that ultimately people will copy, imitate, and adapt. These GPTs are the way that that very small cohort, that always and inevitably smaller portion of the larger ChatGPT using population, is going to get what works and what is useful to everybody else. Again, as Ethan wrote, it's not really a capability change, but a user experience change. But that doesn't mean it's insignificant. In fact, in many ways, it seems likely to me that user experience changes more than capability changes are what is going to be most important to unlocking the value of generative AI to the next 100 million or billion users. Now, this is not to say that there aren't reasonable critiques of custom GPTs. One thing that many have noted is that it appears that there are ways to reverse engineer the custom instructions underlying GPTs. That includes potentially getting access to the files that were uploaded as part of building the GPT. Those are real meaningful concerns. They are security holes, they are privacy considerations, and those are absolutely things to consider when using these tools, or in particular, building these tools. They also suffer from many of the same challenges that just generic use of ChatGPT does. For example, hallucinations, and just how compliant with these custom instructions GPTs really are. Some, like Jerry Liu, the CEO of Llama Index, also argues that they exist in a weird space where they are perhaps too complicated for the average user to create, but also not sophisticated enough for developers who might opt to use the API instead. There's also the question of what the store will actually look like. I think Boris did a really great summary here. He wrote, "Because of the word store, many people think that it'll be like the App Store and get excited about the money-making opportunity. I have a feeling that the better analogy is a Spotify-type subscription platform. Millions of interchangeable, easy-to-make GPTs. The vast majority of them will be free with the $20 per month plus subscription. There will be paid GPTs, but not many people will buy them. Of course, a few hits will sell big numbers. Overall, the store will be 1, great for the users, 2, wonderful for OpenAI, 3, better than nothing for the most new quote-unquote GPT developers. Just like the vast majority of the musicians in Spotify make pennies from streaming, the same will be true with the vast majority of the GPT developers. Most developers will publish quality GPTs and use them as a free lead magnet to monetize in other ways. Some will make good money but nothing big from the revenue share when their GPTs go viral. Overall, I think it'll be a net positive for everyone, or at least for most, and a good next step in the AI adoption wave. Now, I think that there are some reasons to think that Boris is right when it comes to the idea that GPTs will be monetized not via the creators of GPTs setting their own price, but through something more like a subscription. If you go back to how OpenAI described the GPT store, they write, "In the coming months, you'll be able to earn money based on how many people are using your GPT." That's a weird way of saying you'll be able to set the price and get paid each time someone uses it, meaning it seems much more like a revenue sharing type of agreement based on some black box usage formula that we probably won't have access to. Now, all of that said, I don't want to give the impression that this critique is the main thread of conversation surrounding GPTs. Instead, it is definitely excitement and entrepreneurial creativity. Replit builder in residence Martin Bowling writes, "Excited to unveil the custom GPT starter kit. It's designed to empower creators with the tools to build advanced GPTs with ease." And basically, this is a toolkit for an advanced custom GPT that can do things like integrate your own API, create shortcuts, and embed custom knowledge directly into that custom GPT. GPT's Dex is a new product that is racing up the product hunt charts right now that is, as you might expect, a third-party database of interesting GPTs. Now, going back to my claim that GPTs are use case simplifiers, one of the things that will or won't make that so is what OpenAI does or third parties do to make it easy for users to actually go out and find the right ones for them. Yes, this is great that there's a visual interface for searching through thousands of GPTs, but it's still an overwhelming amount of information, and there isn't really any sort of sophisticated search that allows me to go find exactly what I might need for a use case right now, which still kind of leaves people in the position of having to just scroll and see if anything triggers an idea of what might be useful for them. One of the major questions to me for what comes next with these GPTs is what sort of search and browse interface OpenAI puts around them. I think that'll be as significant as the monetization approach when it comes to whatever they're planning for the GPT store. Plus, even though I'm more focused on the here and now, there is certainly an understanding of OpenAI's perspective that these are the beginning of personalized AI agents. Kevin Roos from the New York Times wrote a piece this weekend called "Personalized AI Agents Are Here. Is the World Ready for Them?" The piece concludes, "If OpenAI is right, we may be transitioning to a world in which AIs are less our creative partners than silicon-based extensions of us, artificial satellite brains that can move throughout the world, gathering information and taking actions on our behalf. I'm not fully prepared for that world yet, but by the look of things, I better start getting ready." So friends, that is my take about what GPTs are and are not. I think when viewed through the lens of being better ways of capturing structured prompts and making them shareable, it is an extremely use case expanding and community expanding feature update, and one that I think we're just barely scratching the surface on. I'm sure later this week I will do some rundown of my favorite GPTs that I found so far. Now, if you are interested in talking more about GPTs specifically, you can either join us in the AI Breakdown Discord, which is at bit.ly/AI Breakdown, or I've also created another experimental Discord just for focus on GPT building, called, as you might guess, GPT Builders. You can find a link to that one at bit.ly/GPT Builders. In either case, I'm excited to learn alongside you. And of course, as always, I appreciate you listening or watching. Until next time, peace